Hey guys, Bud Zergo here. Been asked a few times to make a guide for my Oro Flicker Strike build, so here you go. It's based around the gain of Frenzy charges if an attack ignites an enemy on Oro, since Flicker Strike requires Frenzy charges to bypass its cooldown. You're going to want to start off with a good DPS Oro sword. They're extremely cheap, so try and get a decent one. Chaos Heart, life, fire damage, armor, everything you need. I use windscreen, elemental damage, all res. You don't really need move speed since you're using Flicker Strike to get around, and one additional curse for your flammability since you're using blasphemy, Lord's Mark. Helm, just armor, life, all res. If you can, have an open slot for weapon. It's better divine to craft it on, so it's not that bad. Jewelry, you're gonna need dex and intel on gear. You're gonna have to end up at 111 intel for chance to ignite, and 155 dex for blood rage and flicker strike. So you're gonna have to get some of that on jewelry. Weapon Ellie, huge for this build, and life. And of course all res. It's going to be needed on all pieces. Just dex, weapon Ellie, life, res, fire damage is always nice. Dex, intel, weapon, fire, usual. Same with belt. Leather belt's by far the best. Everything else is pretty bad. Heavy belts only give you 17 life, while leather will give you the 40. Gloves, life, 2 reses. You want to keep the 3rd suffix slot open for attack speed. It's pretty big. Let's see. Jewels. You're going to want life and attack speed with swords, and then preferably a 3rd good mod on it. Like damage, reduced mana cost, fire, that kind of stuff. Or attack speed, all res. Attack speed of swords. Attack speed of swords, life. Down here, you're going to want to use the Fireborn Jewel. Changes other types of damage to fire, so you can use Wrecking Ball and all the nodes before it. And Destroyer. These are all really good nodes with Fireborn, so you're going to want to do that. For these jewels, I use attack speed of swords because they go 6 to 8%. Two-handed weapons is 4 to 6, I believe, so they're acceptable, but not optimal. Links for your stuff just gonna be Flicker Strike, Melee Splash, Weapon Ellie, Multi-Strike, that's your 4-link core. 5-link, which I highly recommend. The build is not reliable whatsoever without chance to ignite. And then your 6-link will be Fire Pen. Just gigantic damage boost. Auras, Purity of Fire, Lord's Mark Blasphemy, and Arctic Armor. From what I understand, when you're flickering around, you're not moving, so you get the boost from Arctic Armor. And Oro Sacrifice has 10% increased physical and fire damage taken, so the Arctic Armor will negate that and give you a tiny little bit. I use a level 4 Enlighten because I'm using a 6-link. My mana cost with a Righteous Decree, that node, 4% there, and 5% there, comes out to 51, which is a little over 2.5 cast, which is good enough for me. Without a high level Enlighten, you might be able to get away with 3. I never tried, but I'd say just don't use Purity of Fire. You can toss in Herald of Ice if you want, for like a 200 to 300 extra tickle damage, because you're pretty much all fire. Herald of Thunder you won't have the intel for, so it'll do like almost nothing. Your cast damage taken. Molten Shell. I like to use Molten Shell over Mortal Call because I find the 5 endurance charges are a lot more efficient and better than like a 4-second Mortal Call. Except for when you find a map with porcupines, like Orchard, you're going to want to swap in an Immortal Call for that. I use Flammability because if anything's going to hit me hard enough to trigger this, I'm probably going to need the extra damage to kill it a little faster. And you could use Enfeeble if you really wanted. And then I just have a Vol Haste because more deeps. Leap Slam, Fortify. You don't need Blood Magic because the mana cost was flattened for melee skills, and you end up with 25 mana regen, which is enough to just go forever. Blood Rage, 20% attack speed, gigantic. Frenzy Charge on kill with your melee splash will usually get you going full charges after 1 pack, combined with the Ignite chance, so good on that. Flasks, Saturated Eternal of Heat, Seething Divine of Staunching, just movement. I use anti-curse granite instead of an Iron Skin granite because when I see curses on me, I just see death. I don't feel like dealing with that. Your 5th flask, I use a Perpetual Ruby of Staunching for overtime anti-bleed. You're going to want 1 of each element. Just swap them out depending on the boss and the map you're doing. Like for Precinct, I swap in this. For Coliseum, I put in this. Stuff like that. But for most of the time, you're going to want your Ruby on for LE Reflect. LE Reflect pretty much does nothing. I lose about 200 life per hit without the flask on. With the flask on, I actually heal through it. I can do LE Reflect maps by taking out Melee Splash and putting in Fortify. That just makes the LE Reflect do literally nothing to me. The tree, you end up with around 168% life plus 4 jewel sockets, so it's a little bit under 200% life. The dex and intel, you end up at around 84, so you're going to need about 30 intel and about 70 dex, give or take. You have 7.6% life regen, which gives you 554, which is way more than enough to deal with Blood Rage. In fact, on 40% regen maps, reduced regen, you can heal through Blood Rage and it does nothing. You can leech mana through 40% regens. I reroll 60s because, well, yeah, it's just real bad. To level the build, I pretty much just took a Knight's Hold, put Flame Totem in it, and just leeched public parties. Got a rush from my buddy to do the campaign, and yeah. Once you hit 67, you can just start doing Dried Lake to hit 68 and put on your KOMs. And once you get that on, you should have around like 4.5 to 5k life, which is way more than enough to do any map around your level. Anger. A level 13 Anger gives me about 1,000 top end and around 1,000 average damage. But even with the level 4 Enlightened, it's 44% reserved, which is just way too much. For boots, I know some people are thinking Blood Dance and Darkray Vectors, but Darkray Vectors, 50% reduced Frenzy Charge duration alone make them absolute garbage. 6 seconds to get from the last mob you killed to the boss just isn't possible in like a good majority of maps, where it takes like 10 seconds, like Crematorium, Academy, Necropolis, that kind of stuff. So, and they don't really give you anything other than the Frenzy Charge. which you don't even need. I ran 5 frenzy charges for a long time until I bought these boots. Blood Dance, reduced attack speed, it's horrible. Increased damage against enemies on low life, not needed. You do so much damage. It's just irrelevant. They give nice decks, but you can get that on jewels and jewelry and that kind of stuff. Life regen, you got so much, it doesn't even matter. And frenzy charge on kills, whatever. You'll be max frenzy charges all the time. So I just went with the extra curse for the huge damage boost from flammability and reliability from the extra ignite chance. So far on this character, Lovely Rigwald, he was a joke. Just murdered him. Avatar Thunder, wrecked him, easy mode, no problem. Zeri, she was a little different since she can't be ignited. I just took my Flicker Strike, replaced it with Cyclone. Took Chance to Ignite, replaced that with Conk Effect. Melee Splash, replaced it with Fortify. And I just left Multi-Strike in just to do it on 5-link. But for other people, if you're only using a 5-link, just put in Fire Pen instead of Multi-Strike. If you're using a 6-link, I guess Life Leech or Life Gain on hit, since there's no other good red ones. Full clear all the twin maps, those were all a joke. Except for Duresso, he wrecked me, but we don't talk about that. I think that's everything. Well, if you guys have any questions, I'll put in some mapping videos with it after, bundled with this video. So, just send me a message if you need any help. My name's Redbeak. So, yeah. Hey, I'm just going to add a second part to this video. Just talk about the few smaller things that I could have talked about in the first one, but I was just going to write down in the thread. But I figured I might as well just talk about it in here for the people who don't want to read through it. I ended up with 7,300 life at level 93. 5% nodes give me about 125% life, and leveling up gives me about 35. If you want more life, you can drop like the LE damage, these if you're using a 5-link, endurance charges if you want. And there's this node here, which is 4%, and these. And the duelist ones are pretty close too, if you want more life. But I find that 7,300 or around 7k with Leap Slam Fortify with 5 endurance charges is pretty good for everything. I've managed to do Duresso and Colosseum and all the bosses, and it's no problem. So people talk about Belly of the Beast. I go down to 6,500 life with a high rolled belly, so you're giving up like 800 life for sockets that you don't need. Like pretty much all you can put in is like Vengeance or a Frenzy, which you don't need, so it's just pretty bad. You also lose a lot of damage. Quality on gems, pretty much it's all just damage, Fizz, useless. Melee Splash is pretty good, 10% AoE. More damage, Ignite, whatever. Aura. Blasphemy's pretty good. It's 4% extra endurance charge chance and 0.2 life in Mono Leech. So that's a pretty good one to have. Useless. Ignite chance, but Auro's is attack, so it doesn't really matter. Flammability, it's a pretty good one. I think it's might be Ignite duration or Ignite chance. Might be both, I'm not quite sure. Useless. Leaf Slam useless. Fortified duration, always nice. Arctic armor, whatever. Blood Rage is 5% attack speed, that's pretty good too. It's like an entire node, so it's like 10 to 15 chaos for 20 quality ones, so it's not bad. We take Resolute Technique because there's no good melee crit nodes around here. There's this stuff here, disemboweling. Like these nodes. There might be something else around here somewhere. Yeah, these ones. It's like whatever. You might as well just take Resolute Technique and save yourself a bunch of points and the need for accuracy. Since Oro's only has a 5% base, it doesn't really matter. The LE Leech nodes, these are a huge addition by GGG. It pretty much makes the entire build possible now. Before, I used to have Blood Magic and Life Leech, which replaced chance to ignite and melee splash. So you would have had like half the clear speed and like half the reliability of the build, which is horrible. It would have been absolute garbage without these nodes. So these are like key. I overcapped my resists for LE weakness maps. It's just one less mod for me to have to worry about since we're using so many rares, and one of the uniques that we're using has all res on it. I didn't get any chaos res since we have like 550 life regen, and pretty much only Malagaro in core does like significant chaos damage, so it's whatever. Some people like to use Devoto's helmet, but giving up weapon LE, huge life. We don't take iron reflexes, so the the evasion doesn't get turned into armor. It's just whatever. Attack speed, you're going at like 0.09 attacks per second with Vol Haste. It's not that good. Base armor, I ended up with 4256. My gear's pretty good. I get armor on that. That's good. Armor. It's a damn good helmet. So you get about 90% armor on the tree. So with a granite, it's just a regular granite, not iron skin, it ends up at 10.4k. And with molten shell, it's 943, which is like another 1700. So 1200 armor or so with 5 endurance charges. It's pretty good versus most big hits. Some extra damage mods you might have to throw at a health potion to supplement your life leech to heal between their attacks, but it's usually not that bad. Pretty much only double Duresso has absolutely destroyed me. Map mods, pretty much the only map mods you can't do are 60% regen, immune to statuses, and on the red maps cannot leech. Blood magic is pretty bad too because you have to turn off all your auras, which makes you take a lot more extra damage. You don't get endurance charges, you don't get leech, everything's less reliable. So yeah, 40%'s easy, no regen's easy. That stuff's all no problem. I think that's everything extra. So yeah.